I was a nursing student at UTS, the University of Technology, Sydney, for 3 years between year 2014 and year 2016. UTS terminated my enrollment. I was a ranking #1 nursing student. Annie Dwyer, Shirley Alexander, Professor John Daly, Professor Joanne Gray, Kelly and I, 5 people, they worked together to terminate my enrollment. I was so innocent. I didn't do anything wrong. The starting point, one day I told UTS psychologist, Ms. Fetz and Ms. Widjaja, that I was raped by my alcoholic landlord. However, they disclosed that I'm an alcoholic. It was in year 2015, April. Probably they misunderstood because of my poor English. So, I lodged a complaint. While Professor Alexander was investigating my complaint, I reported Miss Edwards' discrimination. She didn't want to provide me a service to Professor Alexander. It was on 30th of July, year 2015. Now, what I wanted was I didn't want to be treated as an alcoholic woman because I wasn't alcoholic. I'm not alcoholic. But next day, Mr. Smouth, the director of the Student Service Unit, gave me a Professor Alexander's letter requesting me to have 6 sessions of counseling as a condition of my continued enrollment at UTS. That is ridiculous. Why do I have to have the counseling? I just didn't want to be called as an alcoholic woman. And Professor Alexander introduced 5 psychologists to contact. Finally, all the psychologists who Professor Alexander introduced refused to consult me. One psychologist said, "Who is this fucking bitch? Why does she hate you so much?" And then she advised me to seek the legal aid. Professor Alexander requested me to undertake a fitness for placement assessment because she thought I could harm the public. Why would I harm the public? I didn't want to be called as an alcoholic woman. But she said I could harm the public. So I had to contact the psychologist. I contacted over 20 psychologists to request to assess my fitness. But all the psychologists refused. UNSW, University of Sydney, Macquarie University refused. And then they advised me to seek for legal aid. They said it's ridiculous. Eventually, 10 months after, Ms. Iyer, director of clinical placement, found out one psychologist who wanted to assess my fitness. His name is Mr. Jason Borkowski at Parramatta. It took 3 hours to go there. Even performed the general psychological assessment without my assessment, and then released the report. It took 3.5 hours, for him to assess my general psychology assessment. I asked him, "Why did you do this without my consent?" Mr. Borkowski said the Miss Iyer requested. That's why. What is the name? Schaeffer abbreviated scale of intelligence, that kind of thing. So the hundreds of questions I had to answer. Even I was very hungry. So after the assessment, Professor Hitchison and Joanne Gray and I had a meeting. They said I did not pass the fitness placement assessment. Why? And I said, why? The psychologist didn't say I failed, but they said it's unconclusive. UTS permitted me to attend the clinical placement if I would harm the public or not. This is ironical. This is a contradiction, UTS thought I could harm the public, and then they requested the fitness placement assessment. Now UTS want to test if I could harm the public or not. So I was a fourth-year nursing student, and then UTS allocated me at 7A Acute Assessment Unit in the Royal North Hospital. But all my classmates, fourth-year students, attended the standard unit in a group. But I was alone, and then I was allocated. 7A Acute Assessment Unit at Royal North Hospital. In any hospital is not for fourth-year nursing students. The people are dying there, and very, very sick people. And I was alone. And how could UTS allocate me there? But the how, UTS made a forged document. Nursing 3, you see the nursing 3, I was a nursing 1, but UTS, put the wrong, incorrect data in the nursing 3 to allocate me acute assessment unit. So funny, isn't it? So ridiculous. UTS so afraid if I harm the public, but they put the public at risk, harm. About that, Miss Parker at Ronald Hospital, I really want to say thank you to Miss Parker. It's a whole brave disclosure. And she emailed me, you are a third-year student. This is done by the university. When they request a placement, I would suggest that you contact the university in regard to this matter. Yes, I was treated as a third-year student. I contacted the UTS to discuss, but UTS said I should contact a very nursing lawyer. The UTS hired a very nursing lawyer and spending multi-million dollars to conceal its misconduct. In short, they didn't want to fix my incorrect information. That's ridiculous. Many people, several people are fighting against the Barry Nielsen and UTS at the court for just to, they want to is just to fix, UTS to fix the incorrect information. Any lawyer's decision. On 14 September 2006, Mr. Anthony Dombkins, Director of Nursing and Midwifery at Northern Sydney Local Health District, informed me, Professor John Daly is the Dean of Faculty of Health at UTS year 2016, requested nurses at the hospital give me a negative feedback. So that's why nurses gave negative feedback. It's a John Daly planned to terminate me even before I started to my clinical placement. That's really bad. It's a crime. Professor Daly, shame of you. And another thing is subject outline. Formative assessment is awarded a satisfactory or unsatisfactory grade. Students who receive unsatisfactory grade will work with a facilitator to develop a learning support plan. But it was not for me. Although I had a satisfactory grade for the formative assessment, this is a letter Joanne Gray wrote to the proposed. I was awarded a satisfactory grade for the formative assessment. However, here learning support plan was given. Yes, so bad. UTS didn't follow the policy. For what? To terminate my enrollment. So bad. So the provost discontinued my enrollment because I failed one clinical placement. I was the only one in the world who was excluded from the nursing faculty because I failed one clinical placement. So the Professional Experience Appeals Committee was held without my attendance on 15 December 2016. Professor Joanne Gray or Kelly and I think one out of two, who was speaking at the hearing. And then I'm going to introduce you a 5-minute short hearing, part of only 5 years. If you want to listen to the full, and then there is, there is another clip, you can, check my channel. It's a full 15 minutes. She said the placement was at a fourth year student's level. Oh, what a liar. What a liar. There's evidence, but there's plenty of evidence they are telling a lie to the panel. The panel, so innocent or naive or whatever, and then they trusted them, and then they said, okay, exclusion is affirmed.
Which is Ward 7A, does take, in fact, student enrolled nurses as well as Year 1 student nurses. Nothing she was asked to do was outside of that expected of a Year 1 nursing student, and you can see that from the clinical assessment form and the subject outline. And in fact, many of the activities she describes in her own version of events are very, what we would describe as quite basic clinical skills. They're the sorts of things we'd expect a first-year student to do without there being any concern. So her first ground then, this is a summary on page 1 of her appeal. She says here, 1.2, decision on basis of failed placement. This was inserted as a determinant as to whether she was fit to engage. The Provost's decision letter clearly states that he carefully reviewed the background to this matter as well as the documentation. the clinical placement was actually given to Ms Choi as an opportunity for her to demonstrate her ability to perform, to demonstrate that she was suitable to continue in the nursing program. So this wasn't inserted, as she states, as something that occurred afterwards. This is part of a process to determine whether she was fit for, able to continue her program. This is a standard clinical placement for first-year nursing students. There's, I don't know why, she seemed to think it wasn't, but in fact it is standard placement. She says that she was, UTS staff and Wollongong staff were coordinated to over-monitor her. We deny that this is the case. She reports that the Provost's decision was an abuse of power, and I'd like to state that we have gone to great lengths to support Ms Choi. In fact, 9 months after the initial referral from the faculty and 13 months after the first time the DVC education students directed us to ask her to do an FPA, during all that time we supported her and enabled her to continue in the program. She was supervised as appropriate in a standard placement. We were aware when Ms Choi went on placement, clearly, there were concerns about her behaviour, and we were worried about what might occur while she was on placement. So she was supervised by a clinical facilitator who had 2 other nursing students at the time. So she states in her papers that it's normally 1 to 10. In fact, it's normally 1 to 8. And we did have a second facilitator facilitating 8 students at North Shore Hospital at the time. But our ratio of placement of facilitator to students is dependent on a range of factors. And when Ms Choi attended placement, it wasn't during the standard block, it's what we call a make-up block. So we pull students who have missed placement for a range of reasons, and our ratios will often be different. But to be honest with the committee, we were very concerned about her safety on placement. So we, as we said, we had such a responsibility to the safety of the public. And given our knowledge of Ms Choi and her behaviour, we had to be very sure that we were monitoring her and the safety of the patients at all times. So the supervisor, a clinical facilitator, was present most of the time with her, and if not, she was supervised by registered nursing staff, one of whom said that they, at the end, and you'll see that's documented, that there was at no time she would leave Ms Choi alone with any of her patients. She was that concerned about her behaviour. So Ms Choi also says that there was a process that led to a decision about abuse of power, and we would say that we can't see why that would be the case. She does state that this was being referred to as a third-year student. She was in fact doing a third-year subject, and that might have been the confusion, but the placement we put her on was standard for first years.
Way to terminate a nursing student, so please listen to the hearing CD, and then you will find out a lot of errors, and then how they lied so well. It's like a comedy. And just to destroy the one person, one student, not only one, me. And then Mr. Konati, Ombudsman, Youth Ombudsman said, Professor Daly didn't do only to me, other nursing students he witnessed. So very unethical people, UTS and nursing faculty, and then I think we should fix it. So if you agree with me, please email this link to many people. Thank you.